Hello and welcome to another conversation. So we are going to talk about Tamil Heritage Month. I'd like to introduce Changavi. Changavi is a final year medical student and she was involved in many Tamil related activities from her university time. I mean, you're still at university, but you feel like you're almost done now, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah, and she was co-hosting the Tamil Heritage Month launch last year and involved in many projects through Imperial as well as Tamil society at large. So welcome, Changavi.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on here, Rajkumar. And obviously, you need no introduction. You may know Rajkumar has been leading TILE. So that's the Tamil Institute for Leadership and Excellence. And through that, you've been doing a lot of work with Tamil Heritage Month, running sessions on teaching young people about Tamil history, heritage. And I've learned a lot from coming to your sessions. So thank you for doing that. And it's really exciting that you are now sort of helping spearhead Tamil Heritage Month in the UK. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Changavi, so we thought to have a discussion follow up because last year we were doing a lot of TV shows, especially interviews at IBC and other televisions, like taking the Tamil Heritage Month and the launch in the UK. So this year, this has gone to the next level. So we see a lot of activism and activities about bringing Tamil Heritage Month mainstream, but it's all online. Unfortunately. So let's take it from there. So what do you think, like what we should do, or like this conversation to enlighten a lot of people looking at Tamil Heritage Month for the first time?
I mean, for the first, looking at Tamil Heritage Month for the first time, I think it's a great initiative, and I think in many ways, having an online platform, and because of COVID, I think it's just opened our opportunities a lot more to reach more people, more Tamil people and more non-Tamil people, actually, to touch other people with the benefits of our culture and our heritage. So I see this as like a very positive thing, having it all online. What do you think, Rajkumar?
I think it's so, because we managed to reach out to a lot of participants who might be volunteering or who might be doing some activities and so on. Because in the past, distance is always a problem, right? And we always like these massive events, but sometimes we don't reach out to all the people, especially the university students who are like across the country. So I think this year might be an interesting year to see. And especially digital native, they like to do a lot of things online. So let's hope for the best.
For all these events, literally one click away. So should be.
Yeah, but having said that, I think we are looking forward to have a massive kind of face-to-face celebration at some point. When this is all over. But yeah, so let's go into just some intro about why we wanted to launch Tamil Heritage Month here and what is the whole idea behind it from as a perspective, from your perspective.
I mean, so from my perspective, I see Tamil Heritage Month as something that's very needed in our times today. So I think for people my age, the main thing is that it gives us some sort of a grounding. It gives us a reason to talk about our culture and our history. Gives us some sort of identity. I think a lot of us come here and we always struggle with this dual identity, right? So we're British, but at the same time we're Tamil, and it's hard to find that middle ground of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, who am I? And I think that's always been like an issue. So I think with Tamil Heritage Month, it's really good because we are coming to terms finally with the fact that we're both British and we're Tamil, and you can be both. You can do both really well. And it's not only a chance for us to sort of engage with our culture, but I think it's a great time to take our culture forward to our non-Tamil friends. Living in the UK, we have friends who are not just Tamil, people who are English, white, other backgrounds, and it's such a good opportunity to just go and say, hey, this is my culture, this is what we do, this is what Thai Pongal is, this is Tamil Heritage Month, do you want to hear more about my culture? And it's a really good way to get that conversation going, getting it started, and through that it's also a good way to start talking about our history as well. So not just our heritage, but also say, oh, we are here because of our history.
I mean, that's quite important, isn't it? I mean, that's what kind of most of the people don't understand, because once we do is that we celebrate or we keep our cultural identity separate from our history and our political identity, because we talk about activism as a separate thing to our cultural identity. So it's in a way, heritage is kind of amalgamation of all, isn't it? It's all kind of together. So it's quite important that while we celebrate, and we also kind of share this with the others, because I see from kind of my perspective, when we look at a lot of people kind of polarized between, they're saying a cultural event or a dance or something, or maybe a drama act is just purely a cultural thing. It doesn't resonate as kind of what is something to do with our heritage. It's kind of a part of our identity, and why, and those kind of questions can be answered. That's kind of, I'm looking at that point of view, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, what do you see is the difference between history and heritage? Why do we not just call this the Tamil History Month, for instance? It is an amalgam, like you said, it's a combination of both, but why not Tamil History Month?
It's quite interesting, because there was kind of always people think, okay, there are a lot of other months which denotes history, like, Black History Month is a good example, and so on. But I think when we looked at this, and even in Canada, when they actually initially started to launch, what is quite important about Tamil heritage or Tamil identity, it is evolving. It is ongoing identity, because it's a very much of a plural identity, and it's not something very much confined to one religious practice or one kind of a geographical area. It's you can also recall, like Kani and Pungundran have said in a poem, Yadamure Yavarum Kurlir. So it's evolving, and even for us, trying to understand our identity moving forward, we can only do that from our heritage perspective, not as kind of looking at a history, just because history for me, it's kind of something happened in the past. And it's always good to understand our history, where we come from, what happened, but then it's kind of a bottling up kind of process, that you leave it there and then you just move on with something else. But when you say heritage, we are part of that heritage, and it is evolving, and then we are going forward as well. So that's why I look at a classic example I wanted to share with you, the English Heritage Trust. They don't say English History Trust.
No.
It is something evolving, and it is moving. So I think in Tamil, the right word, or the translation is Marabu. So Marabu, I always say this in all of my kind of speeches or discussions, Marabu is different from Palamai, because people think like heritage, history, something oldness, kind of conservatism, like Palaya, old kind of, but it's not. It's about kind of, we have that in mind and we are moving with that heritage. So that's why I think that the right kind of, we have chose the right word, which is Tamil heritage. But history is part of it, right?
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree. I think I really like how you said heritage is evolving. And I think given our current circumstances as well, we need to include and involve people who identify with being Tamil, but from different perspectives. So, some people identify with being Tamil from sort of the cultural side. So, like you said, dance, music, that's like our arts, fine arts. But there's more to being Tamil than just that. And I think the things that really define us are, I don't know what the right word, I can't find the right word in English, but I think, like our panbadu, like our things like that's our way of life.
That's right. It's kind of way of life. That's
the idea of our heritage and our history being constantly evolving and coming to terms with that. So I was saying some people would identify with the fine arts, the cultural side, Bharatanatyam, dance, kuthu, whatever that is. But some people identify with our food. Some people identify with key characteristics that define us, like you said, it's a way of life. Being Tamil is a way of life. Our panbadu, like you said, aram sanda valviyal.
So this is aram is something that, as I said, like in English, the closest translation we could get is kind of the righteousness. Like it's kind of timeless values, because sometimes certain values, religious values and practices are kind of evolving and changing a lot. But these are kind of values that are timeless. And in fact, what I'm proud of personally, what I'm proud of is that when I look at the where the world is heading, kind of, when there's discussion about, let's say, global warming, environment related discussions, about gender equality, and or maybe you take about kind of equality and looking at a society kind of casteless, classless, and at least being kind of more empowered. I mean, these are things that values I see from Sangam literature, which been talked about 2,000 years ago. And unfortunately, throughout, and we lost all of those traditions because of kind of many, many reasons. So looking back and trying to reclaim those values and being proud of that, that's the value of the humanity sees as kind of very important for the 21st century. So that makes me proud.
That makes me proud as well. And we're setting an example for the other people as well, who are non-Tamils as well, and say, this is my culture, this is what we value. And I think historically, our culture is very much in tune with, like you said, with nature. It's always been about living in harmony with nature. And that's the sort of values our culture, our heritage kind of teaches us.
Yeah, that brings it to a good point to talk about Thai Pongal. Because Thai Pongal is one of the most important Tamil festival, and that's in January 14th. And as we all celebrate Thai Pongal, a lot of people don't really understand Thai Pongal is about a way to thank nature, especially the sun, and also the next day thanking all the domestic animals who have contributed for kind of agrarian life and farming and so on, because that's kind of paramount. Food supply is one of the paramount or the vital aspect to any civilization or civilization to thrive. So yeah, what do you think about Thai Pongal?
I think Thai Pongal is obviously a very, very important festival, and to me, it's a I really like the fact that it's so secure. Like, it's not attributed to a particular religion. It's not a religious festival, and I can't think of many other festivals or celebrations where you have a whole nation celebrating that festival regardless of your religion. And I really like the fact that it's open to anyone and everyone, and it's very real. Like, we're paying thanks to the sun. It grounds us. It reminds us of what our roots are, and it reminds us that this is, farming, agriculture. That's the essence of humanity. Right.
Yeah, and especially like we had all these sci-fi movies that if there's kind of no sun and what will happen to the world and so on. I've seen what if kind of videos and so on. This really can't even imagine what could be, and especially the whole world revolves around it. And even speaking about it, like kind of sometimes when you go back in history, when Galileo Galilei want to say that Earth is not the center, the sun is the center, he will be hanged for that, right? And we could see like in Sangam literature this was talked about, and sun being kind of in the center and the other kind of planets are revolving around it, and we have a festival based on that. And even today, we could actually celebrate that. It's actually quite important, and I think a lot of Tamils across, even in the UK, they are celebrating Thai Pongal. But the question is that not to just stop with just Thai Pongal, but what we are trying to do is we're going to just trying to get kind of month of January is being declared as Tamil Heritage Month, or at least to spread that across the month. So in that regards, what do you think that we're lacking, and how we should reach out? Because I see, even though, I mean, you were there when we launched initially last year, and we were on many kind of discussions, but still, I don't think we have reached out to the level that we wanted to reach out. So what do you think we can do?
I think, to start with, I think last year was actually a great success. We had lots of people who turned up, lots of people who are very in favor of the idea of having a Tamil Heritage Month, because one day alone is just not enough to celebrate the vastness of Tamil culture. But I think fundamentally what we need to do is all of us need to take an initiative in everything we do. So it doesn't have to be something that we set out and say, this is Tamil Heritage Month, this is an event for Tamil Heritage Month. I think in our everyday aspects of life, we can channel that in the spirit of Tamil Heritage Month. So, for example, we cook food, and then when we cook food, part of our culture is to share it with our neighbors. Dombal is one of our fundamental principles, right? It's suggested as something that's good. It's actually for Tamil people, it's a must. When people come to your house, or you have to invite people to your house, like that's a must in our culture. So I think even when you make food, sharing it with your neighbors who may not be Tamil, You can give them your rice, you can give them curry. If you have a valela, you can invite them home. Maybe not during Corona, but there's nothing stopping you from sharing your food and telling them, hey, this is Tamil Heritage Month. Do you want to try my food, opening up your doors to your neighbors.
Food is a very important aspect of our life, isn't it? And also food, everybody like food. If you can cook and share, food. But my kind of a disappointment over the years is I see that not many of us really calling kind of spade is a spade, like, Tamil food or Tamil cuisine, because we've kind of lost that kind of identity. So that I think this is the month would be a month to reclaim that identity as well back, isn't it?
And I think Tamil cuisine is very, very particular. It's very, very specific. It's hard to get it mixed up with anything else. And I think a lot of us do kind of go with the whole South Asian, or, some people say it's Indian food, some people say it's Sri Lankan food. But actually recently, I was really happy to see this on social media. There was a cooking show, I think based in Germany or another country, and they were making kotroti. And they brought in a chef from Sri Lanka to make kotroti, and they said, this is the Sri Lankan dish, kotroti. And this went viral because loads of Tamil young people were saying, no, kotroti is Tamil. You can take our land from us, but you can't take our food from us. Kotroti originated in Bangalore. It's a Tamil food. Say it for what it is. It's not Sri Lankan, it's Tamil.
Yeah.
We're happy to share our food, but don't take it away from us. So I think it's food is a really like an interesting one to bond over.
It's the same with rice as well, because I was looking at in history, we're doing some research, like in Chera history, or in the Chera time, there was mentioned something called Perum Soru. Perum Soru is a classic example of biryani. And soru being kind of fundamentally kind of the staple food of Tamils. And over time, Tamils have multiple kind of is a plural identity and of all faith. So when the Arab traders came into Tamil land, and then of course they practiced their religion, and then amalgamation is, so that's how we actually had Islam into our culture. This is way before the colonial time. So the colonialism, started in 15th century. But then mostly this Perum Soru was very popular among Tamils of Islamic faith. And that's something never been kind of understood, because in Tamil Nadu it's very clear. If you have a Tamil household, especially an Islamic faith person, they would actually cook biryani in many of their festivals, and that's how that actually history starts.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really interesting, and it's interesting. Like, there must be so much history and stories to all the other food we eat as well that we don't know about. And this month is a good month to find out more.
Yeah, so we said about food, and we also said, how do you see this will be an avenue to empower more youngsters? Because you see that in London, there is an identity crisis. I mean, we have to sometimes talk about this, because we just trying to put all of this under the carpet and try and say, oh, no, nothing happening. But within Tamils, young Tamils, especially you would have come across, and there is an issue about what is my identity, and how do I define? So how do you think Tamil Heritage Month can empower and some kind of inspire the young Tamils to aspire the Tamil identity, but the more progressive identity, not kind of confined to some kind of religious or some kind of narrow kind of identity, but at a very plural, progressive identity of Tamil identity? How do you think that could be helpful?
That's a very, very good question, Rajkumar, and that's one I've particularly struggled with myself as well, coming to terms with our identity. Because at some points, it almost seems like, they're mutually exclusive. Being Tamil and being British, at some points in the past, for me, it seemed like they were mutually exclusive. And to me, it seemed like, I was two different people at the same time. And I know a lot of young people, when they go from sort of 16 to 20, that kind of age, they kind of feel that way. Because, at home, we have a different way of life. Outside your house, you have a different way of life. And it's hard to come to terms with that. And I think when you go to university, it's a great time to explore your dual identity at university, because you're away from home and you have that independence to really find out who you are, what you believe in, and what your identity is. And for me, in that process, I think what really helped me is having inspiring discussions, and some of them were facilitated by you, Rajkumar, at university. You had some interesting discussions on identity, and I think when you truly understand the values of Tamil, and that not being restricted to just your history and your past, just because we've always done something a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that's what defines us as Tamils. We are a constantly evolving culture. And I think when we understand the fundamental principles, and I think for me, I always turn to things like, the aram, like you said, I don't know how, I can't find the right way to translate it into, but the sort of the principles that we see in, say, things like Tirkural, those values are still relevant today. And even in modern culture, in modern society, those are the values that still underpin who I am. And that now it makes me proud. It makes me proud to say I'm a British Tamil. Who I am is because of the values that have been instilled in me by my literature, by my people,
Yeah.
and it's particularly important because as Tamils, we have such a long civilization. Tamil is one of the oldest living languages. India has declared it a classical language. In fact, it is the oldest living language in existence. So with that comes a thousand, or if not more, years of history. So our people and our literature reflects the learning and thought process that has gone behind 2,000, 3,000 years of empires, of history, and it's even relevant in our practices today. So even from like a minor, not a minor thing, but in temple festivals, they would change their grains every 12 years.
Oh yeah, the kalasam you're talking about,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah.
It's now thought of as like a religious thing, but actually there's a very fundamental principle to that's if the land was ever to get flooded, you had reserved seeds that you could go back and go get, so that you can go back to farming with. And I think when you understand your principles in that sense, having those discussions, when you really go into your culture, it makes you understand that actually my culture has a lot to give, a lot of yeah, a lot of wisdom to give.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in there. The one when you say a lot to give, I mean, being a medical student, and I want to go into Siddha Vaidyam, the Tamil medicine, because if you really look at the Western world now, kind of going back to the roots of looking at the lifestyle changes and trying to address issues more kind of organic way of thinking and so on, and I would walk into any store in London now, like even I'm not talking about general specialist store, any kind of general kind of restaurant or cafes.
Yeah.
I will find a turmeric shot.
It's become especially popular during COVID, hasn't it?
Yeah, even before that, I mean, I remember last year, like the certain kind of shops, like especially the Perdamanja, or like they have this kind of shots like with orange juice. Now, thousands of years or more, we were using turmeric, and we were using many other ingredients in our health kind of well-being. And now, what is my worry is that if we don't own up, if we don't actually really label it and bring it out as our identity and our kind of heritage, that we were using this kind of medicine, some corporate companies are making profit out of it. In fact, we should actually give this free, because this is a knowledge Tamils historically, or in part of our heritage, we kind of, my grandfather to father, mother, grandmother, like it was actually carried on, like to granddaughter and so on. So this knowledge shouldn't be charged. So when we do Tamil Heritage Month, and not only we share our identity, but also we say these are good aspects that comes from our history and our heritage, and it should be free for all. I mean, I see that some companies are branding this and kind of labeling it and selling it a kind of a medicine, organic medicine, or kind of natural kind of herbs and so on. So I think that's something that could inspire a lot of youngsters to get into. And also, like, I really want to, ask you here, like, even when you finish your allopathy course, which is kind of a 5.5 years, 6 years course, it'll be nice, like, if you can go to Tamil Nadu and spend about 2-3 months to learn Siddha Vaidya. I mean, there is an official course which is going on, 5.5 years physician's course. So that could actually give some insight how could actually complement with our ancient traditions with the Western medicine.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you've said, and I think even at university, what we get taught is that treatment is only 10%. of what you can do to a patient. And modern medicine, the medicine we learn at university, focuses very much on treatment. Once you get ill, you come into hospital. What can we do to kind of bring you back to zero? You know, so
Oh, not zero. I would say a threshold, because they can't make for zero. That there is a threshold, isn't it?
So what can we do to make you slightly better so you're able to go back home and function again properly? So that's very much the basis of modern medicine. But what we need to do is focus on preventative medicine. And that's what we get taught in university as well. And there's a bit more emphasis on that, a bit more emphasis on GPs, a bit more emphasis on, a lot more emphasis on encouraging people and patients to lead a more preventative lifestyle. And I think that's where Siddha Vaidyam, Ayurvedam, all of that comes in. And I think what is happening is, what we need to do is we need to be able to fund research, or we need to be able to do these research into, first of all, we need to know what our Siddha Vaidyam preaches. We need to understand what's in our texts, what's in our way of life, and then use that understanding. And
so that itself will be a very complex task, because it was like over generations, right? So that itself, documenting it, like, to the current times, is also interesting. Yeah, go on.
And then document all of that. And actually, in our generation, pretty much every Tamil I know is a doctor or engineer. So use our academic background to run these researches, prove them from a scientific point of view, so that it can be accessible to more people. And this is Tamil wisdom. But unfortunately, I think we do in the medical world anyway, we live in a time where we rely on having to prove our way of life.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a wrong thing, though. Like, because I think one of the problems in the last 500 years, when during the colonial period, Tamil medicine been suppressed to a level, there's no research and development. Because if there is research and development, the good example would be the Chinese medicine. I mean, if you really look at the Chinese medicine, it's kind of thriving. If you go to any part of the world, you will find a kind of a medical shop, a Chinese medical shop, right? Because they have actually made it accessible, and also made it kind of the research and development, and also an offshoot of Tamil medicine, which is Ayurvedic tradition. So Ayurvedic tradition is also very much documented and practiced across the world. So I think research and development is important. We can't ignore the fact that just having some manjal and just having some kadugu siraham is going to cure. But we have the expertise to do those research, and that's important.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, Siddha Vaidyam, learning about Siddha Vaidyam will give us the premise, so we know what to research and what to prove. And obviously, I see that as only benefiting not just Tamils, but all of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, we can go on talking about this, Changavi, and I know that you're passionate and I'm passionate about this, but the audience might be wondering what these two are just talking about. So let's come back a bit and say, what we want to do is Tamil Heritage Month celebrations, second year. How could we do it? And TAL have put some efforts to reach out to younger generation through TSI, Tamil Students Initiatives, and also we are working with young graduates who have gone through our workshops over the years. I mean, you can talk about the workshops a bit, but British Tamil Chamber of Commerce is also doing their event, like a massive event in the UK, trying to do it. So that will be, I think, 15, 16 or something in January. So there are lots of things happening, and TAL volunteers are doing a lot of plays and so on. But what do you think that we could do? And I mean, let's talk about that a little bit more, kind of take it to the wider population, and especially to the Tamils.
Yes. In terms of carrying forward Tamil Heritage Month.
That's right. Yeah, and celebrations this year.
Celebrations. I mean, I think, like I said, like, change starts with us. So I think whatever you do, first of all, I feel like we should do it as an extension of Tamil Heritage Month. I don't feel like we have enough happening in January anyway. Like from Thai Pongal, Tamil schools will be doing that. Even universities will have Pongal celebrations or some sort of meet and greets, some sort of small events planned for that January, early February period. And I think if, whatever we do, if we were to market it as Tamil Heritage Month, that in itself, it's a big thing. That's on an individual level and on like a small organization point of view.
That's right. Yeah. And especially, what do you think with the university students can do? Because they're quite active. This year, I saw that so many societies are like, Instagram, it's kind of flooded with the Tamil societies and activism, right? And activities. What do you think they could do?
it's always encouraging to see. I love seeing Tamil universities sort of taking the lead on this. And I mean, Tamil universities, like I said, already have events planned for January. And on top of that, if they wanted to, we can have discussions, facilitate discussions, similar to what we've had before on identity, on history, and on heritage. And I think that will help younger university students kind of feel a bit more empowered about who they are, what their identity is, and hopefully make them feel proud and able to talk about their own heritage to their non-Tamil friends and peers.
That's a good point you mentioned, because I wanted to come in there, because they might be busy studying and they might be like, looking for their kind of, of course, courseworks and exams in January and so on. But always there is a time, like, once it's all over, I think what would be the best thing for them to do is to learn. Because if they can learn the identity, and especially the heritage, and in a challenging way, in an enlightening manner, like, for example, rather than just take it for the fact, oh, this is Tamil heritage, oh, this is why Tamil. No, you may have to challenge sometime. What is Tamil heritage? What is Tamil identity? So I think they can use this month to enlighten themselves or understand, and also involve in debates. So whether they do something now or not, but they have the knowledge. So over time, and they can really take this further. And secondly, I think the university students are well placed with future leaders, right? They themselves, as well as kind of non-Tamils, the host communities, future leaders. So this would be a good time, because when you forge relationships, friendships, and try to explain about your identity to your host community in the university level, these kind of friendships and this kind of working relationships will last for years to come later, because it's easier for them to build that. And I think the university societies should kind of focus a little bit outwards, like when they do Tamil Heritage Months, because there are a lot of activities, but like, team building, ice breaking events, Amma Appa, and all of that they have this in. But at least this Tamil Heritage Month, it will be something showcasing Tamil identity to the outsider.
Yes.
So I would suggest, I don't know whether it works, you might actually tell me. So if there's a Tamil heritage discussion or something, wider population, if each one of us, like at university, bring one of our non-Tamil friend.
Bring a friend to Tamil heritage. Yes, I like that idea. I do like that idea, and I really like the idea. I really like what you said actually about, even for me, from my point of view, with your friends, when my friends tell me about their culture and their heritage, I feel like I have a deeper connection with them. And that friendship actually lasts a bit more because they trust you, or I feel privileged when they tell me, oh, I do this in my community because of this, this, and this. I feel like I have a better understanding of their culture. And likewise, when you do the same to them, they will also appreciate you taking the time to explain your culture to them, I'm sure. So I think it's what you said is absolutely right. I think it helps form really good connections with your friends, helps them understand you on a deeper level, and help you become the real authentic you that you are,
in fact, I think I might be wrong, but you have to correct me. But at the university level, when the students go to the university, that's the time they're looking into the identity deeper and trying to ask questions and seeking. Yeah. I think that's coming from looking at their cohort, the peers, how they embrace their identity, how they actually put out their identity, like, the other communities. And I think that's what stimulating a seeking within our generation, our youngsters, to look for their identity. Because if you go to the university, you see how they're proud of, I'm talking about other host communities here in the UK, how they're proud about their identity, how they kind of express their identity. Yeah. What do you think about it?
I think it's it's not just for Tamils. I think for lots of other people, a lot of people come into university especially second generation migrants come in not really sure where they fit in. And you go to Freshers Fair. When you go to Freshers Fair, you're seeing all these communities, right? You see everything. You see like water polo, you see Indian society, you see the Punjabi society, you see
Pancake Society.
Yeah, all of these societies. And there are all over like 200, 300 stands. And then you're standing there and you think, okay, where do I go? Where do I fit? Because, through at school, even sometimes at home, you might feel like even in like family functions as a second generation, you might feel like somewhat of an outsider, right? Because you feel like you're kind of English, you're kind of British, but then you're not Tamil enough for family, or like with your in like the older generation. But you go to university and you're standing there and you're thinking, where do I fit? And I think for most people, it's, well, I think I fit with the Tamil society, but I also want to do this. And I think that's what really starts that seeking process. Figuring out, okay, how Tamil am I? What does Tamil mean to me?
Wow.
Is my parents' idea of being Tamil the same as my idea of being Tamil? And does it necessarily have to be the same?
That's a very, very intellectual level kind of seeking and discussions, isn't it? I mean, I think what I could actually gather from your kind of reflection here is that Tamil society, especially Tamil socks at the university, they have to put the game up a bit. Like there's kind of somebody wondering, where do I go? Which society? I had to see cool stuff on the Tamil stands next time. So what we could do is we could actually work together with them, and especially like in discussions like that, and see how do we bring more cool stuff or cool kind of his heritage back. And make it more attractive. And also, I mean, in a sense, it is not about sales, or it is not about marketing about our identity, but it's about seeking the truth and seeking like what is the heritage I'm proud of from our history and heritage, and how am I going to move forward? So to connect. So yes, we could continue discussing, but we have to come to an end at some point, and it'll be good to what we can actually say each other a final message, because this conversation is not going to finish here. Throughout month of January, we'll have many conversations, but for time being, what do you like to say to the older generation? Because I'm going to say other way around. So I'm going to actually talk to the younger generation. You can talk to the older generation, and see what kind of you are kind of expecting. It's coming from your generation, to the older generation.
Yes. I think to the older generation, I think Tamil Heritage Month is a great opportunity to teach younger people like us a bit more about our culture and heritage. So to to point us in the right direction, to give us a little bit more of an idea of, what our food is like. Is there a reason behind why we eat food in a certain way? Point us in the right direction when it comes to literature, or anything else. So give us a little bit more of an idea into what our culture is like, what's there for us to search within our own culture and our heritage. They kind of guide us in the right way as we want to learn more about our history and our culture. I think that's the main thing I want to tell the older generation. And as part of that, take part in Tamil Heritage Month. Everything that you do, please do put them out as Tamil Heritage Month so that we can find it easily. We all have a collective understanding of what this initiative is, and work together so that we can all learn more about our history, and so that we can pass it on to non-Tamils in our friendship groups. I think that's maybe what I want to say.
So I was thinking what to say to the younger generation, especially who are at university level, like seeking to. So one thing I would say very clear is Tamil identity. It's very much plural, open. So there is no one fixum as such. So everything's okay. So don't worry if you make something that or this. Some people say, "Oh no, this is not Tamil heritage. You're making a mistake." No, don't worry, because people learn, and we go through, and also you're seeking your identity. And sometimes our older generation, or my parents or my grandparents, they have practiced something thinking that that's Tamil kind of heritage or Tamil identity. Probably not, because we are influenced by many kind of years of colonials and invasions and different things. So we might have to go back and look what is the real value. But one thing we know for sure, it's all based on aram, on kind of the fundamental aram, which is kind of the righteousness and morals. So if you think that what you're doing is morally right, kind of plural, that's Tamil identity. Don't worry about it. So that's what I say. Don't worry too much about, am I doing something wrong? So let's continue this discussion, Changavi. That's the message I wanted to give to the youngsters.
Yes, that was really good. Rajkumar. That was very, very nice. Well, very well put.
So I'd like to thank you for your time, Changavi, and thank you very much for the audience as well watching this conversation. We will continue. There are many organizations actually working in this regards, like so Tamil Students Initiatives. You can contact them, and Tamil Institute for Leadership Excellence or British Tamil Chamber of Commerce, and the SOAS Tamil Chair. The other organizations are joining. So if you want to get information on Tamil Heritage Month, you can get through to them.
Thank you so much for having me today, Rajkumar. I really enjoyed it. It was really good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nandri, vanakkam.
Nandri.